On July 22, 2025, the world lost one of rock music's most iconic figures, Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness. His death marked the end of an era but also the beginning of an intense global curiosity surrounding his private life and legacy. Known for his magnetic stage presence, haunting vocals, and larger-than-life personality, Ozzy's influence transcended music, touching millions of fans worldwide. After his passing, attention quickly turned to his estate, a sprawling, secretive world filled with personal artifacts, hidden treasures, and the echoes of a turbulent yet extraordinary life. As legal teams began the delicate task of inventorying and managing the estate, revelations surfaced that no one expected. From secret vaults packed with rare memorabilia to personal journals that exposed the man behind the myth, the findings would shock even the most devoted fans. This video takes you deep inside Ozzy Osbourne's estate, unveiling discoveries that reveal new dimensions of the rock legend's life, creativity, and legacy. What was uncovered after his death will leave you speechless and forever change how the world remembers the Prince of Darkness. John Michael Osbourne was born on December 3, 1948, in Birmingham, England. Raised in a working-class environment, Ozzy's early years were far from glamorous. Birmingham's industrial backdrop and his family's modest means shaped a young boy who would later embrace rebellion and creativity as his identity. His rise began in the late 1960s, when he joined the groundbreaking heavy metal band Black Sabbath. With his distinctive voice and intense stage presence, Ozzy helped pioneer a new genre that channeled darkness, mysticism, and raw emotion. Albums such as Black Sabbath, Paranoid, and Master of Reality not only defined the sound of heavy metal but also left an indelible mark on popular culture. Despite personal struggles with addiction and public controversies, Ozzy's resilience was unmatched. After parting ways with Black Sabbath in 1979, he embarked on a solo career that further solidified his status as a music icon. Hits like Crazy Train and No More Tears introduced new generations to his unique blend of theatricality and vulnerability. Beyond music, Ozzy's personality was complex, a mix of humor, vulnerability, and defiance. His marriage to Sharon Osbourne brought stability and fierce protection of his legacy. Together, they navigated fame, health challenges, and family life with determination. Ozzy Osbourne was not just a singer, he was a cultural phenomenon whose influence continues to resonate worldwide. Ozzy Osbourne faced increasing health challenges. Diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a condition that affects movement and motor skills, his condition gradually deteriorated. Complications such as respiratory infections and injuries from falls further impacted his health. Despite these setbacks, Ozzy's spirit remained strong. He continued working on music and making rare public appearances, determined to leave a lasting legacy. However, by mid-2025, his health had visibly declined, prompting close family care. On July 22, 2025, surrounded by loved ones, Ozzy Osbourne passed away peacefully at his Los Angeles home. The news shocked the music world and fans globally. Tributes poured in from every corner, celebrating his profound impact on rock and metal music and honoring the man who had lived so boldly. Immediately after his death, the Osbourne family and legal teams moved swiftly to secure his estate. The property was locked down to preserve the integrity of Ozzy's personal belongings and to begin the complex process of cataloging his vast collection. Ozzy Osbourne's estate was a sprawling sanctuary nestled in the hills of Los Angeles, a place far removed from the chaos of fame. Purchased decades earlier by Ozzy and Sharon, the property was a carefully curated space filled with decades of memorabilia, personal effects, and private treasures. The estate's layout included multiple buildings, private studios, and landscaped gardens, spaces designed both for family life and creative work. Over the years, Ozzy had invested in advanced security measures to protect his home and possessions, including surveillance systems, secure vaults, and hidden rooms. Following his death, these security protocols were heightened. Legal teams, estate executors, and specialist investigators were brought in to oversee the inventory and management of the estate's contents. The family's priority was clear: to protect Ozzy's legacy and ensure that every item was carefully documented. Public curiosity about what lay inside the estate ran rampant. Rumors suggested the existence of secret rooms and hidden safes containing unreleased music, personal diaries, and priceless memorabilia. Yet, until the estate was officially opened, the truth remained a closely guarded secret. Following Ozzy Osbourne's death on July 22, 2025, the process of unlocking and cataloging his vast estate began under strict confidentiality. Sharon Osbourne, named as the principal executor in his will, coordinated with a team of estate attorneys, music archivists, private investigators, and security professionals to oversee what would become one of the most closely watched posthumous estate investigations in entertainment history. The first order of business was legal verification. Ozzy's final will and testament had been updated just months before his passing, indicating not only the distribution of financial assets but specific instructions regarding personal items, musical archives, and legacy preservation. The Osbourne children, Kelly, Jack, and Amy, were each granted roles in helping to determine what items would remain private, what could be released to the public, and what was to be preserved in perpetuity. Forensic archivists and preservation experts were brought in from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the British Library to assist in organizing decades' worth of recordings, writings, artifacts, and media. Specialized crews with knowledge of high-security safes and hidden architecture were tasked with opening vaults, decoding locks, and scanning walls for concealed compartments using infrared imaging and ground-penetrating radar. Security was paramount. No photographs or recordings were allowed during the initial inspections. Every person entering the property was required to sign non-disclosure agreements. Despite these precautions, leaks emerged in whispers across entertainment blogs and insider circles. They'd found more than they bargained for. From the first week, it became evident that the Osbourne estate was not merely a collection of items. It was a deep, intensely personal archive documenting the mind, madness, genius, and pain of a man who had lived a life few could understand. During the second week of inspection, teams uncovered the first of what would become 4 separate hidden vaults built into different wings of the Osbourne estate. The largest of these was concealed beneath Ozzy's private recording studio, accessible only via a biometric lock coded to his thumbprint and retina scan, technology considered cutting-edge even by Hollywood standards. Upon entry, the team was greeted by walls lined with fireproof safes, rare instruments in hermetically sealed glass cases, and floor-to-ceiling shelves stacked with magnetic tapes, handwritten lyrics, and old journals wrapped in leather. Some of the content dated back as far as the early 1970s during the Black Sabbath era. One vault contained unreleased tour footage, never-before-seen videos shot in black and white by roadies and crew members across Europe and South America. These tapes revealed an entirely different side of Ozzy, introspective, sometimes frightened, occasionally weeping after shows, overwhelmed by fame and addiction. Another compartment revealed a memory chest that stunned even his family. It included items Ozzy had kept from his childhood home in Birmingham, a rusty toy harmonica, letters from his mother Lillian, and a school report where a teacher noted, "John shows little discipline but seems to hear music no one else can." The third vault uncovered gifts from fellow rock legends, including a personalized dagger from Lemmy Kilmister of Motorhead, a diamond-encrusted microphone gifted by Elton John, and a series of handwritten letters from David Bowie, who had apparently mentored Ozzy in secret during the 1980s. Even more mystifying was the fourth hidden vault. Located behind a false bookshelf in the library, it contained artifacts no one had expected: occult books, Ouija boards, ritual items, and what appeared to be personal research into the origins of spiritual belief systems. Whether Ozzy collected these out of curiosity or belief remains unknown, but they added another layer to his complex identity. Among the most emotionally powerful discoveries inside the Osbourne estate were 42 handwritten journals, dating from 1971 to 2024. Each one, bound in black leather with pages yellowed over time, chronicled a personal journey that no tabloid, no reality TV show, and no interview had ever revealed. The early entries from the 1970s recounted Ozzy's excitement and confusion over Black Sabbath's sudden rise. He wrote about nights he couldn't sleep because fans were screaming outside his hotel, and mornings he couldn't remember because of alcohol and drugs. There were moments of raw honesty. "I thought I wanted fame. I really just wanted peace. But now I can't go anywhere without eyes on me. I feel hunted." His 1980s writings during the height of his solo career showed a man struggling with fatherhood, addiction, and guilt. One particularly haunting passage read, "I missed Kelly's first steps. I was in a hotel bathroom, blacked out on vodka. I would give up every Grammy to get that moment back." The journals were not just about regret, they were also filled with reflections on love. His devotion to Sharon was a recurring theme. "She saved me more times than I can count. I was a drowning man, and she walked right into the ocean after me." Some entries shocked even those closest to him. There were letters never sent to estranged friends and former bandmates. In one letter to Tony Iommi, he wrote, "We created something eternal, and we nearly killed each other doing it. I'm sorry for the times I blamed you when it was really me." In addition to personal thoughts, the estate also contained hundreds of unsent postcards, scribbled notes, and rough song lyrics that had never been recorded, offering insight into the mind of a man who never stopped creating, even in isolation. These writings are currently being reviewed for future publication. Experts say they rival some of the most introspective works ever written by musicians, not just for their historical value, but for their emotional depth. While fans had long speculated that Ozzy Osbourne had recorded unreleased material over the years, no one was prepared for the sheer volume of music discovered within the hidden vaults of his estate. It was not just a few demos or acoustic versions, It was an archive of more than 160 unreleased recordings, spanning over 5 decades of his career. In a soundproof room adjacent to the main vault under Ozzy's private studio, archivists discovered hundreds of magnetic tapes, DATs, digital audio tapes, reel-to-reel recordings, and even early digital files stored on legacy systems from the 1990s. A dedicated team of engineers and sound historians from Sony Music and Epic Records were immediately called in to begin the process of preserving and digitizing the collection. What they found astonished them. Rare solo material that had never made it to an album, including entire sessions with the late guitarist Randy Rhoads that were believed to be lost. Experimental tracks featuring symphonic arrangements and haunting choir harmonies that deviated from Ozzy's known sound. Home-recorded acoustic pieces, deeply personal songs composed in his later years, some of which reflected on mortality, love, and redemption. Collaborations with artists that were previously unknown to the public. Tracks featuring Slash, Tom Morello, even a surprising duet with Adele recorded in 2015 but never released. A 2001 unreleased concept album tentatively titled Echoes of Madness, which appeared to explore the psyche of a man battling dual identities, Ozzy the rock star versus John the human being. The album was completed but shelved due to fears it would be too personal or not commercial enough. One of the most haunting tracks discovered, Goodbye My Demons, is now being prepared for release. The song was written in 2023 and features lyrics that eerily foreshadow Ozzy's own death. When the curtain falls, and they whisper my name, I hope they know I tried to change, but the mirror never lied and my demons never died. This treasure trove of music is being organized into a posthumous multi-volume series, with Ozzy's family working closely with producers to preserve his legacy authentically. The first volume, titled Resurrected, The Vault Sessions, is set to release in early 2026 and is already generating global buzz. As estate teams continued their work, certain discoveries proved to be deeply controversial, sparking debates not only within the family but across the fanbase and the wider public. Among the most sensational items found was a private occult collection stored in a locked steel cabinet inside Ozzy's library. These weren't simply novelty items for aesthetic, they included hand-bound grimoires from the 17th and 18th centuries, ritual objects such as pentagram-engraved daggers, ceremonial robes, and a skull adorned with black gemstones, correspondence between Ozzy and underground occult historians and researchers, notes on symbols, exorcisms, and ancient rites, some written in his own hand. While Ozzy often joked about his Prince of Darkness image, these findings raised eyebrows. Was it all part of a lifelong theatrical performance? Or had Ozzy truly explored the occult in his personal life? His journals do hint at his interest in life beyond death and his desire to understand the spiritual realm, especially after several near-death experiences. Another controversial finding was a box labeled The Cage, which contained syringes, vials, pill bottles, many empty, and paraphernalia from the 1970s and 80s. His rehab discharge papers from multiple clinics. A disturbing self-written manifesto, where Ozzy listed all the drugs he'd used, followed by a line, "I'm still alive somehow." Why? The box was accompanied by a folder of typed journal entries from his time in rehab centers, some angry, others heartbreaking. They revealed the internal battle he fought for decades to reclaim control over his mind and body. Behind a false wall in a hallway closet, inspectors discovered what tabloids later dubbed the Dark Closet. Inside were dozens of VHS tapes and mini-DV camcorders with explicit, erratic content, some documenting bizarre rants, others moments of intense emotional collapse. A chalkboard covered in cryptic phrases, including "time is not linear" and "shadows know me better." It was clear Ozzy had been documenting not just his public life, but his mental descent in real time. These recordings have not been released and are currently under review by the family and legal team to determine whether they will ever be made public. The Osbourne family has since addressed these discoveries, stating, "Ozzy never hid who he was. These items show a man who wrestled with his darkness and still came out with music and love in his heart." While much of the focus was placed on Ozzy's music and controversial artifacts, perhaps the most emotionally moving discoveries were the family heirlooms and personal effects that revealed the deeply sentimental side of the rock legend. Inside a velvet-lined chest labeled "To My Blood" were individually wrapped boxes addressed to each of his children. These included, for Kelly, a locket containing strands of Ozzy's and her baby hair, alongside a handwritten letter saying, "You were always the loudest in the room, like me. That's why I knew you'd survive." For Jack, a vintage camera Ozzy used on tour in the 80s, with developed film rolls showing family moments never seen by the public. For Amy, a poem Ozzy wrote after watching her perform in a play at age 12. Titled "Star in My Shadow," it was one of the few times he expressed his feelings in verse. In a safe hidden behind a false painting in their master bedroom, archivists found over 200 love letters Ozzy had written to Sharon. Many of them never sent. Some were romantic, others apologetic. They spanned decades, including one from a rehab center in 1996 where he wrote, "You stayed. I wouldn't have. That's why you're the hero in this story, not me." Another letter, dated March 2025, just 4 months before his death, simply said, "When I go, it won't be the stage I miss. It'll be falling asleep to your voice." Numerous personal items were found that reflected Ozzy's quieter side. A collection of watches, each with a story attached, including one gifted by Freddie Mercury. A hand-stitched leather-bound book of The Lord of the Rings, which he reread every year. A faded poster of the Beatles signed by all 4 members, gifted to Ozzy when he was 16 by a local radio station. When archivists came across several worn leather-bound notebooks hidden in the back of a concealed closet in Ozzy's master bedroom, they were unaware of the storm of emotion and insight they were about to unleash. These were Ozzy Osbourne's personal journals, handwritten over decades in jagged scrawl, filled with confessions, reflections, and private turmoil that no publicist ever touched. The journals dated as far back as the early 1980s, shortly after his firing from Black Sabbath. Here, Ozzy wrote about the depths of his despair, how close he came to ending his life, and how Sharon's unwavering support gave him a second chance. He described waking up in hotel rooms not knowing what country he was in, sometimes not even knowing who he was. More heartbreakingly, he documented his guilt over the emotional impact his addictions had on his children, the lost time he could never recover, and even his belief that some of his darkest moments had cursed his musical genius. In one entry dated December 1993, he wrote, "There are voices in me that never shut up. They scream in the middle of a sold-out show. They whisper when I'm alone. No amount of fame makes them go away." There were also entries reflecting deep philosophical musings. Ozzy was never seen as a philosopher, but the pages revealed a man who pondered mortality, religion, and the meaning of legacy. One passage simply read, "Will people remember me as a clown? Or will they remember that I broke the chains that tried to bury me?" The journals are now being considered for museum preservation, though it's still uncertain whether they will be published. Sharon has confirmed that she is working with editors to determine if parts of them should be released to fans in the future. Perhaps the most shocking discovery in the Osbourne estate was made in a climate-controlled vault beneath the estate's wine cellar. 17 unreleased tracks recorded between 2018 and 2024, none of which were ever discussed publicly by Ozzy, his label, or even his closest collaborators. These tracks, labeled Project Eclipse, featured a sound unlike anything he had done before. Gone were the heavy guitars and thunderous drums of his earlier works. Instead, these songs blended ambient synths, spoken word passages, melancholic orchestration, and subtle harmonies reminiscent of Pink Floyd's The Final Cut or David Bowie's Black Star. One track, titled Whispers from the Other Side, featured Ozzy's voice layered with effects that made him sound like a fading echo. The lyrics, shockingly prophetic, included the lines, "I am the ghost of the man you knew. Still walking hallways you painted blue. When I'm gone, don't cry too long. I'm just a note in your last song." Fans and critics alike were stunned by the emotional gravity of these pieces. Music historian Daniel Mullen, after listening to early samples, said, "This is Ozzy's final will and testament, not just musically, but spiritually. It's a farewell album from a man who saw the end coming and chose to turn it into art." Sony Music has announced that Project Eclipse will be released in late 2026, with full orchestration and a visual documentary, which includes footage Ozzy filmed himself while recording the tracks in secrecy. Behind a sliding mirror door in the west wing of the mansion was a room no one, outside of Ozzy's immediate family, knew existed, his private spiritual sanctuary. At odds with the public image of a rock legend soaked in chaos and dark imagery, the room was filled with artifacts from multiple religions and cultures. A small Buddha statue, a rosary, Native American smudge sticks, an Islamic prayer mat, and even Kabbalistic scrolls were carefully arranged on a low wooden altar. There were handwritten affirmations on the wall, one of which read, "You are not your past. You are your resurrection." An audio device played meditative chants, including Gregorian hymns and Sanskrit mantras. In the corner was a worn-out leather armchair with an open Bible on the side table, its margins filled with underlined verses and Ozzy's notes scribbled in pencil. This room showed a side of Ozzy that had long been buried under layers of celebrity, a man in pursuit of peace, understanding and self-redemption. Sharon later revealed in an interview, "Ozzy came here every morning when he was sober. He prayed, he read, he forgave himself. That's the part of him most people never saw, the man trying every day to be better than the day before." This revelation deeply impacted fans who had long seen Ozzy as the ultimate rebel. The truth was more nuanced. Ozzy Osbourne was not running from God, he was running toward him, stumbling as he went, but never stopping. As the estate exploration drew to a close, one final chamber remained sealed behind a hidden iron door in the Osbourne mansion's west wing. Accessed through biometric identification, using both Ozzy's and Sharon's credentials, the room revealed what can only be described as a personal sanctuary and time capsule of Ozzy's private world. Inside, walls were covered with floor-to-ceiling murals, dark, surrealistic paintings of angels, demons, and abstract versions of his family. A central vault contained Ozzy's handwritten spiritual diary, a 2,000-page collection filled with deep philosophical reflections, regretful confessions, and spiritual messages he never intended to share publicly. It chronicled his personal demons, battles with addiction, near-death experiences, and unspoken guilt surrounding friends lost too soon. In a final drawer, sealed with wax, lay his personal farewell video addressed to each family member individually. The messages were raw, emotional, and often heartbreaking. His voice trembling as he thanked, apologized, and asked for forgiveness. But perhaps most shocking was a legal document revealing a secret foundation Ozzy created, the Bat Sanctuary Trust, aimed at wildlife preservation, an ironic nod to the infamous bat-biting incident. The trust had been anonymously funding conservation efforts for years. The room symbolized the complexity of Ozzy Osbourne, not just the wild man of rock, but a broken, sensitive, and deeply introspective soul. It was not just the conclusion of the estate search, it was the emotional climax of a man's final message to the world, and it truly left everyone speechless.